Okay, our goal here is to create an object that can represent our brand. It's going to meet the needs of a client, and it's going to end up being multiple pieces that we design and then 3D print that need to fit together. That takes a little more work than the simple brand object you may have done before. So let's get started. First things first, I want to go ahead and name my design. I am designing a giveaway object for my client. Happens to be my lab, the Mad Lab. And this one, I will call it a pencil holder. Or maybe, I don't know, I call it a desk stand. Nameplate, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to go ahead and start thinking through this thing. I am thinking of myself. I'm going to make something that'll sit on my desk, but you could easily be building something for a client. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to design a few parts here. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and build a base. I know that size-wise, I probably want to put it about 100 millimeters wide. 100 millimeters, 10 centimeters is going to be, like the distance between my eyes. I may want it a little wider than that in this case because I'm going to be putting some text and such on top of it. So maybe I'll go ahead and shoot it out to 150. It's a little bigger than anything you may have built before if you haven't 3D printed much. I'm making a base, so I'm going to go ahead and drop it down. I don't need it to be very tall as much as I just need it to be, of a good enough size. All right, that gives me a start here. I could work on, shaping the corners, things like that, but I'm pretty happy with that. We're going to design the whole thing, and then we'll think about how to actually produce it. So let's start there. I'm going to go ahead now and grab this thing and I'm going to duplicate it. So to duplicate something, you can click the copy and paste. I can copy it. I can paste a second one. I'm going to move that one over here. And what I want you to imagine is that we're actually going to make something that sits on top of it. In fact, I want it to sit on top of it on an angle. So I can set the angle exactly. I could say 75. That might be just what I want. Notice if I bring this over here, there, I've got it intersecting, but I need to learn to use this triangle tool because I'm going to lift it up until it's a little bit higher, like that. So I know that's the kind of idea I want. Now I'm going to run into a problem as far as 3D printing goes. And I may want to zoom in and later on I can line this up precisely because right here, looks like I got it. It's lined up just right. Good. So one of the challenges I'm going to run into is that as I intersect these pieces, I actually need to make sure that the bottom of this shape is flat to this shape. I can't actually print this exactly like this, not very well. It's risky because this thing is on an angle and overhangs with 3D printing can fall. So it would be safer to make these two pieces fit together. It'll also be more mailable that way. So to make it mailable, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy and paste my same old shape again because I'm actually going to want to use my shape again. I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to move it out of the way for the moment. And then I'm going to come to this shape. And remember, I was just looking at it from the side. I'm going to turn it into a hole. And then I'm going to intersect these two, just like that. And when I intersect them, now I can go ahead, oops, I don't want to turn them both into a hole. I want to group. I've now cut the bottom of this top piece so that it will be flat against this other piece. So now I can take this guy and set it right back where it was, like that. Okay. So they're not going to join yet. We're going to have to figure that out too. But at least I have the idea straight. I understand what I'm doing. I know it's 75 degrees. I want some designs on this thing though. So before I go too far, we'll go ahead and design the basic pieces, but let's first get that done, and then we will come back and deal with the other stuff. All right, so this shape, I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of feet onto my shape. So maybe 10 by 10, something like that. And I can always click on the number to get it exactly. And I know that this guy is about 5 wide. So I'm going to make some straight feet. So I'm going to go ahead and get this measurement here, make it 4, so it's not, oops, wrong one. This one, 4. There it is. And I can go ahead and bring that up so that it's flat to the surface there. That looks right. It is actually upside down. I can tell that because of this angle right here. That really doesn't matter much. It just changed it. It just turned itself over, so that's fine. And what I really want to do is I want to embed this thing into my top piece. I want to not see, so remember, you can always navigate using the square over here if you're not seeing it just the right way here. So I'm looking at it, and it's looking like I've got it just about right. Yep. Now I'm going to align it with the plane. This may be a little hard to see, but I want to make sure where this thing is. So I'm going to grab my bottom piece again, and I am going to move it out of the way very carefully so that I'm holding the shift key so that it doesn't move to the sides. I just want it out of the way so I can see where my little feet are. And I am using 2 fingers to scroll and just see that my little shape is fully inside of the other one, because I need some feet. And I want to line this up to the grid. So I'm going to hold shift again. Oops, it was no good. See if I can get it to just go with the left arrow key. Notice I just pulled it so that it would be right on the grid. There's that grid, and if I'm looking at the grid, that helps me to see where things are. And oops, I'm gonna try to grab this and pull it out. There, I'm happy with that. So it's gonna be the 3rd box. I'm gonna come back and take this guy over here. Let's zoom out. And let me go ahead and hit the home button just to get myself back in order. Let's put one right here, and we'll make this a double just to, oops, can't hold the shift key there. Okay, and copy and paste, and we'll keep going to the side, and we're gonna go to that box. So I'm just measuring it to make sure that it stays inside of my desired locations. Looks like it moved forward a little on me by 1 step. Let's zoom it in. Just look around, make sure. Okay, looks like I've got all my pieces just right. Okay, so I got a couple of problems here. I wanted to make this piece stand into the other piece. So I'm making some little feet that will sit into holes, but I'm gonna have to cut holes. And there's something I've got to learn here. When I'm 3D printing, the hole has to be a little bit larger than the shape. You can't make them exactly fit, because when the printer prints, it will squash the filament down just a little bit. So you actually need about 0.5 millimeters, something like that, to make sure that it's going to fit okay. Now this may take a little trial and error. You can, 0.3 is the minimum for fitting, but 0.5 is a little safer. If that's a little too loose, you may have to print it twice and see what you think. But what I'm going to do to make the holes is I'm going to copy and paste. So just remember that now I've got my pieces. I'm going to put them right where I want them, just like that. And what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to go ahead and build these guys into my top shape. So I'm going to group. All right, so now I've grouped it. I can move this guy out of the way. So that's my top shape. And this bottom shape is ready now to be moved into place. So I can go ahead and move it like that. Now, remember, these have to be a little bit bigger. So now I can come over here and I can make this, I think if I do 4.1, actually I only need 0.05, I think, but let me go ahead and do that. And this is going to be 10.05. And this one is going to be 20. I'll give myself 0.05. And over here, we'll do 0.05. And what I'm doing is I'm making my hole just a little bit bigger so that things will fit nicely. So understanding how the material works is always important, and this is that aspect of it. I've turned them into holes. I select my original shape, and now I'm going to go over here and group. Now I could come back and just check. So if I want to, I can come back in here, move it over, look at the bottom. Looks like it's going to fit nicely. Looks like my holes are a little bit off, maybe. Nope, actually, I'll just move that over. Move that over. I'm just using the arrow keys to nudge it one grid box at a time. And that looks good. So now I've designed my two pieces. These could be any shape we want. They could be round. They could be, lots of different things. I just have to think about overhangs and that kind of stuff, and then I can do it. Okay, so now this top piece, in order to put some designs on it, I actually need to lay it back flat again. I know that it was at 75 degrees, so I've got to go to 75 to make it flat. And in order to put stuff on the top of it, I'm going to have to take it, I don't have to put it back on the main bottom, but I can. So I can go ahead and just drop this to 0, roughly. Something like that. Let's see if I can just go ahead. There we go. Now notice I do have a little extra here going on. So when I print this, if I were to print it just like this, it's going to have this back. This back is going to get filled up with support structures, so I actually might as well fill that in. Oops, I am pulling in an object that is hard to see. I pulled in a block. And I'm going to pull that over. And the reason it's up is that it's got these little angled feet, right, that go down. These guys right here, have to come down at an angle, and because of that, it lifts the whole block up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that gap behind it so that it doesn't have the fill structure supports that will automatically come from the slicing process otherwise. So I can go ahead and just make that look nice and smooth. I don't want to mess up the top of my, I want my angle to still show up there, but I can do it like that. Probably right there. And now I can lower it down. Let's see. Is it even? Looks like I might want to just bring it back over a little bit because it's got, well, it should be okay. That should be right on, but it's not. It looks like it's off by just a slight bit. That's fine. I just used the arrow key there. This guy, this top piece is actually, I'm gonna just, let's see if I can nudge it so that it lines up to the grid. By default, it is lining to the grid. That looks good. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out. Remember, if you're not comfortable moving around in the plane, you always have the home button to go back where you were, and you can go back to the original tutorials with the brand object activity. Now, what's bothering me is that I'm seeing my whole shape move around, so I'm gonna have to test it to make sure that everything's still good at the end. Because I've got the other one in line, I probably am safe, but that's what prototyping is all about. I'll go ahead and bring that out to there. And let's go ahead and bring this back in. And this one is 35 by 150, and this one 42, but it's counting all the way from there, and it's 150 long, so that seems about right. Now I'm ready to merge this back piece on, so I can take that and I can go ahead and make sure they're both selected and group. All right, no edges, looks good. So I'm actually ready at this point to go ahead. I'm gonna hit my home button again. I'm ready to add some text or some designs or other things. In this case, I actually want to put the MADLAB logo on here. I'm gonna go ahead and import a scalable vector image. So images that are already SVGs can be imported into Tinkercad and extruded to make 3D. So I'll go over here. I'm gonna pull up my MADLAB sign. I am going to bring it in. It doesn't matter really where I bring it in. The width is 496. That's way too big. I know that my width here is 150, so if I go to 100, well, actually we can always rescale it. Let's just import and see what happens. Nice thing is we can use any image that's already what's called a vector image. A vector image is defined in software, so it has the necessary, no supported elements. Let's see if I can pick my image up and import it over in Adobe Illustrator. Maybe I have to export it a different way. I'll try that right now. So if you're familiar with Adobe Illustrator, you can generate SVG images in Illustrator. That's actually my sign, but let's see if I go back and let's open this thing back up from the Adobe file. Okay, there it is. And I'm going to go ahead and try exporting this guy. Export as. I'm going to export it as an SVG, and I will drop it into the same folder. Replace. Decimal, layer names, preserve. Okay. I don't know if these things matter. Maybe I don't need that. Maybe we need that. I'm going to hit OK. And it looks like it's done. Let's try this one. So you may have to do some trial and error here to get those settings to work. Run it again. Import. Let's see how it goes here. There are a lot of SVG images around. You can find images from KSU. You can generate them yourself. This time it imported with me using the settings you just saw. And now I can actually pull it. It pulled it in as a 3D object already. So I didn't have to give it 3D. I didn't have to extrude it. Now I'm just thinking about how to fit it on here so that it'll look good. There we go. There's my lab. Actually, I'm thinking maybe we should add a little KSU logo on here. So maybe if I pull that back, let's try it. So kind of like that, and I'm going to hit import again. Let's see if I can find a KSU logo. So I do believe that I have a KSU logo. And let's go in here, and I can pull up here, and let's get one of these. But since there's no color in our, I want it solid though, if I can get that. I may have to generate just the right thing, but let's see. So I'll go ahead and open it this way. Let's import it, see if that'll work. If I'm happy with it, good. If not, well, we'll have to fix it. Okay, so it's huge. I only want the top part. I actually don't, I just want the image of the top, which means I need to what? I need to cut off this bottom part. I can use a hole for that. So I can come down here, and this particular thing, what happened is it stuck up above. I need it on the work plane. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it down. Actually, it doesn't matter. It can be bigger. And then I'm going to run it out here. I'm going to cut this part of this image off. I'm going to do that by using a square to chop. Then I'm going to hit over here, and I'm going to hit group. I'll just wait a second, and that's gone. And now, I don't know if you notice, but I've got this little thing here that will never print very well, not when I shrink it down in a moment. And so once again, I'm just gonna put it into a hole. I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna hit group. Aha. And now I got it. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna shrink this down. I don't know, something like that. Let's see if I can move it in here, kind of make it all work together. Maybe move this back just a hair. take this guy over just a hair, maybe a little bit lower. So I've got my whole thing, and I am ready now to go ahead and group. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe this logo is just a little bit, needs a little bit more that way. That's probably right. Okay, and now I'm going to select these three objects, and I'm going to hit group. Wait till they all turn the same color, because we don't have that. There is a way to do color, but at this moment we don't have that set up with our printers. I'm just looking to see, am I happy? Is it too tall? Does it stick out too much? Later on I can actually paint these letters. This 3D printing material takes paint pretty well, so that's certainly a possibility. I think it might be a little bit too tall. Let's just bring the height down a little. Let's go down to 8. And this over here, same thing. Let's go down to 8. Okay, I think that's probably better. And I'm just thinking proportions. I want something that's attractive. There we go. I'm going to hit the home button. Looks good. So in order to go ahead and print this thing, I'm going to have to get it over to my printers, and to do that I'm going to export it as a stereolithography file, an STL. Notice I can also laser cut if we wanted to cut out a wood or something like that, but for the time being I'll just click STL. I'll save my file, and then we'll try printing it. And in this case I'm going to have to think carefully about how I slice it. We'll get to that in a minute, but I have finished the initial design and I'm ready to try it out, and if something goes wrong I'll just come back and fix it. All right, thanks for watching. Take care.